Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We will continue our reading from the Nectar of Devotion, originally Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. And this is in English by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Nectar of Devotion, chapter number 16, Spontaneous Devotion, further described. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langhaite girim yat kripatamam vande, gurum den tarinam, parmanand madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram Hariyam Tatsat. Relationship in the attitude of the denizens of Vrindavan, such as Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda, is to be found the ideal transcendental concept of being the father and mother of Krishna, the original personality of Godhead. Factually, no one can become the father or mother of Krishna, but a devotee's possession of such transcendental feeling is called love of Krishna in a parental relationship. The Vrishnis, that is Krishna's relatives at Dwarka, also felt like that. So spontaneous love of Krishna in the parental relationship is found both among those denizens of Dwarka who belong to the dynasty of Vrishni and among the inhabitants of Vrindavan. Spontaneous love of Krishna as exhibited by the Vrishnis and the denizens of Vrindavan is eternally existing in them. In the stage of devotional service where regulative principles are followed, there is no necessity of discussing this love, for it must develop of itself at a more advanced stage. Eligibility for spontaneous devotional service. Persons desiring to follow in the footsteps of such eternal devotees of the Lord as the Vrishnis and Vrindavan denizens are called Raganuga devotees, which means that they are trying to attain to the perfection of those devotees. These Raganuga devotees do not follow the regulative principles of devotional service very strictly, but by spontaneous nature they become attracted to some of the eternal devotees such as Nanda or Yashoda, and they try to follow in the footsteps spontaneously. There is a gradual development of the ambition to become like a particular devotee, and this activity is called Raganuga. We must always remember, however, that such eagerness to follow in the footsteps of the denizens of Vraja, that is Vrindavan, is not possible unless one is freed from material contamination. In following the regulative principles of devotional service, there is a stage called Anartha Nivritti, which means the disappearance of all material contamination. Sometimes someone is found imitating such devotional service, but factually he is not freed from anarthas or unwanted habits. It has been lost the thread. It has been seen, which means sometimes someone is found imitating such devotional service, but factually he is not freed from anarthas or unwanted habits. It has been seen that a so-called devotee proclaims himself a follower of Nanda, Yashoda or the gopis, while at the same time his abominable attraction of mundane sexual life is visible. Such a manifestation of divine love is mere imitation and has no value. When one is actually spontaneously attracted to the loving principles of the gopis, there will be found no trace of any mundane contamination in his character. Therefore, in the beginning, everyone should strictly follow the regulative principles of devotional service according to the injunctions of the scriptures and the spiritual master. Only after the stage of liberation from the material contamination one can actually aspire to follow in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan. It is said by Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī, when one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. And developing such an aptitude, one will always live in Vrindavan, even within his mind. The purport is that if it is possible, one should go and physically be present at Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, and be engaged always in the service of the Lord, following the devotees in Vrajdham, the spiritual realm of Vraja. If it is not possible, however, to be physically present at Vrindavan, one can meditate anywhere upon living in the situation. Wherever he may be, one must always think about life in Brajdham and about following in the footsteps of a particular devotee in the service of the Lord. A devotee who is actually advanced in Krishna consciousness, who is constantly engaged in devotional service, should not manifest himself even though he has attained perfection. The idea is that he should always continue to act as a neophyte devotee as long as his material body is there. Activities in devotional service under regulative principles must be followed even by the pure devotee. But when he realizes his actual position in relationship with Lord, he can, along with the discharging of regulative service, think within himself of the Lord under the guidance of a particular associate of the Lord, and develop his transcendental sentiments in following that associate. In this connection, we should be careful about the so-called Siddha Pranali. The Siddha Pranali process is followed by a class of men who are not very authorized and who have manufactured their own way of devotional service. They imagine that they have become associates of the Lord simply by thinking of themselves like that. This external behavior is not at all according to the regulative principles. The so-called Siddha Pranali process is followed by the Prakrit Sahajiya, a pseudo-sect of so-called Vaishnavas. In the opinion of Rūpa Gosvāmī, such activities are simply disturbances to the standard way of devotional service. Sri Rūpa Gosvāmī says that learned acharyas recommend that we follow the regulative principles even after the development of spontaneous love for Krishna. According to the regulative principles, there are 9 departmental activities as described above, and one should specifically engage himself in the type of devotional service for which he has natural aptitude. For example, one may have a particular interest in hearing, another may have particular interest in chanting, and another may have a particular interest in serving in the temple. So these or any of the other 6 different types of devotional service, remembering, serving, praying, engaging in some particular service, being in a friendly relationship, or offering everything in one's possession, should be executed in full earnestness. In this way, everyone should act according to his particular taste. Conjugal love. Devotional service following in the footsteps of the gopis of Vrindavan or the queens at Dwarka is called devotional service in conjugal love. This devotional service in conjugal love can be divided into 2 categories. One is indirect conjugal love, the other is direct. In both these categories, one has to follow the particular gopi who is engaged in such service in Golok Vrindavan to be directly attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This technically is called Keli. This Keli performance means to directly join with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are other devotees who do not wish direct contact with the Supreme Person, but who relish the conjugal affairs of the love of the Lord with the gopis. Such devotees enjoy simply by hearing of the activities of the Lord with the gopis. This development of conjugal love can be possible only with those who are already engaged in following the regulative principles of devotional service. Specifically in the worship of Radha and Krishna in the temple, such devotees gradually develop a spontaneous love for the deity, and by hearing of the Lord's exchange of loving affairs with the gopis, they gradually become attracted to these pastimes. After this spontaneous attraction becomes highly developed, the devotee is placed in either of the above mentioned categories. This development of conjugal love for Krishna is not manifested in women only. The material body has nothing to do with the spiritual loving affairs. A woman may develop an attitude for becoming a friend of Krishna, and similarly, a man may develop the feature of becoming a gopi in Vrindavan. However, devotee in the form of a man can desire to become a gopi is stated in the Padma Purana as follows. In days gone by, there were many sages in Dandakaranya. It is the name of the forest where Lord Ramchandra lived after being banished by his father for 14 years. At that time, there were many advanced sages who were captivated by the beauty of Lord Ramchandra and who desired to become women in order to embrace the Lord. Later on, these sages appeared in Gokul, Vrindavan, where Krishna adventured himself there, and they were born as gopis or girlfriends of Krishna. In this way, they attained the perfection of spiritual life. The story of the sages of Dandakaranya can be explained as follows. When Lord Ramchandra was residing in Dandakaranya, the sages who were engaged in devotional service there became attracted by his beauty and immediately thought of the gopis at Vrindavan, who enjoyed the conjugal loving affection with Krishna. In this instance, it is clear that the sages of Dandakaranya desired conjugal love in the manner of the gopis, although they were well aware of the Supreme Lord as both Krishna and Lord Ramchandra. They knew that although Ramchandra was an ideal king and could not accept more than one wife, Lord Krishna, being the full-fledged personality of Godhead, could fulfill the desires of all of them in Vrindavan. These sages also concluded that the form of Lord Krishna is more attractive than that of Lord Ramchandra, and so they prayed to become gopis in their future lives to be associated with Krishna. Lord Ramchandra remained silent, and his silence shows that he accepted the prayers of the sages. Thus, they were blessed by Lord Ramchandra to have association with Lord Krishna in their future lives. As a result of this benediction, they all took birth as women in the wombs of gopis at Gokul, as they had desired in their previous lives. They enjoyed the company of Lord Krishna, who was present at that time in Gokul Vrindavan. The perfection of their human form of life was thus achieved by their generating a transcendental sentiment to share conjugal love with Lord Krishna. Conjugal love is divided into two classifications, namely conjugal love as husband and wife and conjugal love as lover and beloved. One who develops conjugal love for Krishna as a wife is promoted to Dwarka, where the devotee becomes the queen of the Lord. One who develops conjugal love for Krishna as a lover is promoted to Golok Vrindavan to associate with the gopis and enjoy loving affairs with Krishna there. We should note carefully, however, that this, either as gopi or as queen, is not limited only to women. Even man can develop such sentiments, as was evidenced by the sages of Dandakaranya. If someone simply desires conjugal love but does not follow in the footsteps of the gopis, he is promoted to the association with the Lord at Dwarka. In the Mahakurma Puran, it is stated, great sages who were the sons of fire gods rigidly followed the regulative principles in their desire to have conjugal love for Krishna. As such, in their next lives, they were able to be associated with the Lord, the origin of all creation, who is known as Vasudeva or Krishna, and all of them got him as their husband. Parenthood or friendship. Devotees who are attracted to Krishna as parents or as friends should follow in the footsteps of Nand Maharaj or Subal, respectively. Nand Maharaj is the foster father of Krishna, and out of all the friends of Krishna, Subal is the most intimate in Brajbhumi. In the development of becoming either the father or friend of the Lord, there are two varieties. One method is that one may try to become the father of the Lord directly, and the order is that one may follow Nand Maharaj and cherish the ideal of being Krishna's father. Out of these two, the attempt to directly become the father of Krishna is not recommended. Such a development can be polluted, and Mayavad or impersonal philosophy can become polluted with Mayavad or the impersonal philosophy. The Mayavadis or monists think that they themselves are Krishna, and if one thinks that he himself has become Nand Maharaj, then his parental love will become contaminated with the Mayavad philosophy. The Mayavad philosophical way of thinking is offensive, and no offender can enter into the kingdom of God to associate with Krishna. In the Skanda Puran, there is a story of an old man residing in Hastinapur, capital of the kingdom of Pandus, who desired Krishna as his beloved son. This old man was instructed by Narad to follow in the footsteps of Nand Maharaj, and thus he achieved success. There is a statement in the Narayan Vyuhastva prayers that the persons who are always engaged in the thinking of the Lord as their husband, friend, father, or well-wisher are always worshipable by everyone. This spontaneous love for Krishna can be developed only by the special mercy of Krishna or his pure devotee. This process of devotional service is sometimes called Pushti Marg. Pushti means nourishing and Marg means path. Such development of sentiment nourishes devotional service to the highest standard, thus it is called the path of nourishment or Pushti Marg. The Vallabh Sampradaya, which belongs to the Vishnu Swami sect of Vaishnava religion, worships Krishna in this Pushti Marg. Generally, devotees in Gujarat worship Balakrishna under this heading of Pushti Marg. Chapter 17, Ecstatic Love. By the process of executing regulated devotional service, one is actually elevated to the transcendental stage beyond the material modes of nature. At that time, one's heart becomes illuminated like the sun. The sun is far above the planetary systems, and there is no possibility of its being covered by any kind of cloud. Similarly, when a devotee is purified like the sun from his pure heart, there is a diffusion of ecstatic love, which is more glorious than the sunshine. Only at that time is the attachment to Krishna perfect. Spontaneously, the devotee becomes eager to serve Lord in his ecstatic love. At this stage, the devotee is on the platform of Uttamadhikari, perfect devotion. Such a devotee has no agitation from material affections and is interested only in the service of Radha and Krishna. To clarify, in the previous chapters, the symptoms of devotional service were explained along with the instructions as to how we may execute devotional service with our present senses and gradually rise to the platform of ecstasy in spontaneous love, and the two kinds of devotional service, namely devotional service through regulative principles and through spontaneous love, were discussed. Within the stage of the regulative principles of devotional service, there are two divisions, namely executive and effective. This effective portion of devotional service is called bhav or ecstasy. In this connection, there is a statement in the tantras that ecstasy in the first symptom of pure love for the personality of Godhead, and in that stage one is sometimes found shedding tears or shivering. Not always are these symptoms manifest, but actually when King Amrish was put into difficulty by Dvarvasa, he began to think of the lotus feet of the Lord, and thus there were some changes in his body and tears are falling from his eyes. These symptoms are activities of ecstasy. They are visible in the shivering of the body and the shedding of the tears. After the outward appearance of these ecstatic symptoms, they stay within the mind, and continuation of the ecstasy is called samadhi. This stage of appreciation becomes the cause of future exchange of loving affairs with Krishna. Elevation to this stage of ecstasy can be possible in two ways. One way is by constant association with pure devotees. The other way is by the special mercy of Krishna or by the mercy of a pure devotee of Krishna. Elevation to the ecstatic stage of life is generally attained through association with pure devotees, while elevation to that of the special stage by the special mercy of Krishna or his devotee is very rare. The purport is that one should execute devotional service rigidly in the association of devotees so that there will be certainty in raising oneself to the ecstatic position. The purport is that one should execute devotional service rigidly in the association of devotees so that there will be certainty in raising oneself to the ecstatic position. In special cases, of course, there is a special favor from Krishna, and although we should always expect that, we should not sit idly and simply wait for Krishna's special mercy. The regular duties must be performed. It is just as when sometimes it is found that a person who never attended school or college may be recognized as a great scholar, or an honorary degree from great universities may be offered to him, but that does not mean that one should avoid school and expect to automatically receive an honorary degree from some university. Similarly, one should devoutly execute the regulative principles of devotional service and at the same time hope for Krishna's favor or for his devotees' favor. An example of rising to the stage of ecstatic love by executing the regulative principles of devotional service is given in in the life story of Narad, which is described to Vyasadeva in Srimad Bhagavatam. Narad tells there of his previous life and how he developed to the stage of ecstatic love. He was engaged in the service of great devotees and used to hear from their talks and songs. Because he had the opportunity to hear these pastimes and songs of Krishna from the mouths of pure devotees, he became very attracted within his heart. Because he had become so eager to hear these topics, he gradually developed within himself an ecstatic love for Krishna. This ecstatic love is prior to the pure love of Krishna. Because in the next verse, Narad confirms that by the gradual process of hearing from great sages, he developed love of Godhead. In that connection, Narad continues to say in the first canto, 5th chapter, verse 28 of the Bhagavatam, first I passed my days in the association of the great sages. During the rainy autumn season, every morning and evening, I heard them while they were singing and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, and thus my heart gradually became purified. Every morning, as soon as I heard from them with great attention, the influence of the modes of material ignorance and passion disappeared, and I became firmly fixed in devotional service to the Lord. These are practical examples of how one can develop to the stage of ecstatic love simply by association of the pure devotees. It is essential, therefore, that one constantly associate with pure devotees who are engaged morning and evening in chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, one will get the chance to purify his heart and develop this ecstatic pure love for Krishna. This statement is also confirmed in the third canto, 25th chapter, verse 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Lord Kapil says, My dear mother, when a person is actually in association with pure devotees, a sublime potency of my devotional service can be experienced. In other words, when a pure devotee speaks, his words act upon the hearts of the audience. What is the secret of hearing and chanting? A professional speaker cannot impress transcendental ecstasy within the hearts of the listeners. However, when a realized soul who is engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject spiritual life within the audience. One should therefore seek the association of such pure, unalloyed devotees. And by such association and service, a neophyte devotee will certainly develop attachment, love, and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Padma Puran, there is a story of neophyte devotee who, in order to raise herself to the ecstatic platform, danced all night and invoked the great Lord's grace and upon her. Sometimes, however, it is found that without undergoing any devotional process, one all of a sudden develops devotion for Lord Krishna. This sudden development of the devotional attitude in a person must be understood as a special mercy of Krishna or his devotee. This apparently accidental development of ecstatic feeling through the causeless mercy of Lord can be divided into three groups: simply by speaking, simply by glancing, and simply by good wishes. In the Naradiya Puran, there is a statement about the development of ecstatic love simply by speaking. Lord Krishna said to Narad, O best of the Brahmins, I wish that you may develop unalloyed devotional service to me, which is full of transcendental bliss and all auspiciousness. In the Skanda Puran, there is a statement about developing ecstatic love toward Krishna simply by glancing. It is stated there, when the inhabitants of Jangala province saw the personality of Godhead Krishna, they were so stricken with the feeling that they could not withdraw their glance from him. As far as heartfelt wishes are concerned, there is a statement in Shuka Samhita where Narad tells Srila Vyasadeva, You have a son who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead, and I can observe that without any following of the regulative principles of devotional service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many, many births. As for ecstatic love of Krishna, there is a statement in the 7th canto, 4th chapter, verse 36 of Srimad Bhagavatam, in which Narad addresses King Yudhishthir. My dear king, it is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad. He developed a natural attraction for Krishna, and whatever I can explain about his character will simply be an arrangement of words. His actual character is impossible to describe. This means that Narad himself admitted that the natural development of Prahlad's ecstatic love was by the grace of Lord Krishna. This natural attraction for Krishna on the part of Prahlad was developed simply by the mercy of Narad. When Prahlad Maharaj was within the womb of his mother, she was being sympathetically instructed by Narad about the science of devotional service, and at the same time, Narad was wishing that the child within the womb also could take advantage of the instructions. Because Narad had an authorized devotee and great associate of the personality of Godhead, was desiring auspiciousness for Prahlad Maharaj, he developed all the characteristics of a high-grade devotee. This is called natural attraction. It is caused by the special grace of the personality of Godhead or by the special grace of a great devotee like Narad. There is a statement in the Skanda Puran wherein Parvat Muni tells Narad, my dear Narad, of all saintly persons you are so great and glorious that simply by There is a statement in Skanda Puran wherein Parvat Muni tells Narad, my dear Narad, of all saintly persons you are so great and glorious that simply by good wishes a low-born hunter also becomes a great elevated devotee of Lord Krishna. This ecstatic love for Krishna can be divided into five divisions, which will be described by Sri Rūpa Gosvāmī later on. So next time we'll continue with the chapter 18, Character of One in Ecstatic Love. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.